Welcome to Let's Talk to Animals. My name is Shannon Cutts. I am an animal intuitive and sensitive Reiki master practitioner. And if you're watching the video version, I'm also mama to a precious little 4-month-old puppy with wings named Petal. Today, we're talking with Cindie Carter from Walks and Wags and Social Dog Podcast. I'm super excited to have you with us. And I'm really loving your t-shirt.
Thank
really
you.
loving it. Yeah. Wine, dogs, and weekends. You can't go wrong with that. Not going to assume everyone can see it since we're a vlogcast and a podcast, but Cindie and I share a common passion for increasing connection and heart-centered communication between people and their companion animals. So if that sings to your heart, I want you to know that you're in the right place. I also want to share, if you have found Let's Talk to Animals, my podcast, for the first time, we are really all about demystifying and de-wooing interspecies communication and connection. And so that's kind of the mission. The first 3 seasons of Let's Talk to Animals, we really spent a lot of time talking to my colleagues, fellow animal communicators, holistic pet practitioners. And for season 4, it's been kind of a blend so far of me sharing a little bit more about my insight and still featuring some of my favorites who are out there doing such amazing complementary work. And Cindie, you're one of those. You have an amazing podcast of your own. And I just want to make mention of your website. It's socialdogpodcast.com. And you can also find Cindie at walksandwags.com. So I'll put those in the show notes, but I'm also not going to make the assumption that everyone who's listening today has already met you and knows about all the wonderful things that you're doing, and most importantly, your heart for dogs. So I'd love it if you would rewind us a little, take us back to the beginning and share a little bit more about your journey and what brought you into the work that you're doing today.
Absolutely. Happy to share that with you. And thank you for having me on to the podcast. And thank you for thinking with your heart instead of your brain. Now, we're all on a mission, right? Life's a journey, so enjoy it. When I hit I used to race cars. I was huge in the automotive industry.
Wow.
No one knows that. I just threw that out there. I used to race Corvettes.
Wow.
And Sports Car Club of America. And I hit that glass ceiling. And someone asked me if you could do anything, anything, all the money in the world. Definitely, immediately, it was, I just want to play with dogs. I want to be with the animals. That, without thought, that's what came out my mouth. Looking back as I grew up, people asking, well, what do you want to be? I just want to play with your dog.
Yeah. Can I borrow your dog? Yeah.
It always was my answer. So when I hit the glass ceiling, I was in a financial position where I could continue to be in the automotive business, but start doing research up the West Coast, because I was living in the West Coast at the time. We sold everything, moved back home to New Orleans. What a great place to grow up. That's where I got to grow up. 8 months later, Hurricane Katrina came, took everything, took my target market, just took everything away. It was kind of like the first, it's crazy to even have these words come out my mouth, but it was kind of like the first natural disaster our country really saw. A lot of people passed. Long story short, my in-laws are from Mobile, Alabama. We were planning on going to Atlanta, and 12 hours later, we were just getting to Mobile before the storm came. As soon as I could set my foot on the ground and I knew we had nothing to go back to, started handing out flyers. It's like, oh gosh, I don't want to go back in the automotive business. And my in-laws had this real estate empire here. Like, for sure, the only daughter-in-law is certainly going to join the family, but it wasn't me. It was still not me. Years later, they've come to admire what my husband and I do. This is our passion, our love. My husband's a freak of nature musician. He really is the legit Pied Piper as well. He's got just as big a heart for animals as I do. He's our pet taxi driver. He's our photographer. If I say I want to go to an animal communication conference, he backs me up 100%.
Incredible.
Yeah, he's just an amazing human being. He really, really is. So persistence, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, just being persistent, knowing what you want. And no matter how many people are like, you could be a millionaire selling houses or whatever, it's not about the money. It's about your heart and what feels right. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. Like my son's a year out of high school, and all of his friends went to college. And he was like, I'm really not sure what I want to do yet.
Yeah.
So he went and worked for a vet's office. Now he wants to become a vet. I don't know how that happened.
Told you, but I haven't shared this with our dear listeners. You can meet Cindie's whole family if you head over to walksandwags.com. There's a beautiful video, and you can meet the folks you're hearing about right now and get a sense of how very supportive and very nurturing your family life is. And I really love that, the vibe that you guys have. I feel like it's easy to overthink how we get into a space where we can start putting our dreams in motion. And we think that XYZ has to happen, but really it's all an inside job, or at least that's the experience I've had as well. And it certainly sounds like that for you. Just notice the surprising things. If you're listening right now or you're watching and you're thinking, I feel like I'm not doing what I want to do, or I just love animals so much, I'm not sure how I could serve, or even that dreaded left brain thought the market is gutted or flooded, or what I want or what I dream of is not possible. Let's challenge that. Just get quiet and then maybe say to yourself, if I could do anything and there were no barriers and I had no fear, and just notice what comes, say it quickly, notice what comes out of your mouth, because it seems like that's kind of the magic ticket for your family, Cindie.
It really is. I think if you think about it, it's coming from your brain and not your heart.
Yeah.
And regardless, you can't care about what anybody else thinks because you're on your own journey. You came for a purpose. What is your purpose?
And I think there's another important element, and we don't always find this in our family of origin, and you're blessed enough that you have, and maybe you've been very strategic about also nurturing that. And because of course, the more we're open-hearted and we're brave, the more others around us feel inspired and brave enough to start opening up the shut doors in their hearts as well. But maybe you're not going to find that encouragement and that support. And those, what my intuitive teacher, Sonia Choquette, calls your believing eyes, your community of believing eyes. Maybe you won't find that in your family of origin. But in my experience, and I've had 5 decades under my life to date, there's always at least one other individual in your life. And maybe you start finding that one other person by being that person for someone else and just championing their dreams, really listening to them, really hearing what is being said as well as what's not being said. And that's a really interesting intersection with animal communication, because you, Cindie, have had some challenges, and you've had some health challenges as well as some situational challenges. And you made this really important statement that just really impacted my heart, where you said you found the company of animals to be healing in ways that often other human animals maybe weren't able to meet that need. And I'd love for you to share a little bit more about not just what that felt like, but how you started to awaken your awareness of that experience of
So being totally transparent, I didn't have a wonderful childhood, but there were animals around, and I could say there were sacred animals around. Because when I say animals, I really, really believe every animal on this planet is a sacred animal, and they're here to heal us. Different animals heal us in different ways, and they healed me. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them. I feel like I was raised a lot by them. I got a lot of love from them, and I don't regret anything because I am who I am on account of them. But I think the animals, nature, Mother Earth, they deserve all the credit. They really, really do. It's a religion, to compare it to a religion is kind of a small thing, but I really feel like animals, nature, Mother Earth, they are number one. They're who takes care of us. And I think we all need to go back to that mindset. The Native Americans knew that. They worked with the animals and nature and the elements millions of years. We've kind of gotten off track. And I think the animals and nature are trying to wake us up and say, come on back, help us. Let us help you to come back. So I hope I answered your question. I think I did.
Absolutely. It reminds me, like your husband, I have a background in music, and I was making my second CD and invited a family friend he's an amazing banjo player here in Houston. And I don't know how it came up, but we were talking about where we feel closest to God. And he said, my church is when I'm out in the fields with my dog and my rifle. He's just out in nature. And it's like, I am not here to tell any, or even to suggest to anyone that their spiritual connection is anywhere other than where they find it. And I thought that was fantastic. He was so clear, and we all get to choose. Einstein once said that we can live two ways. One way is if nothing is a miracle, and the other way is if everything is a miracle. And what would be truly miraculous is if we're all truly more alike than different, and if we're already always connected. That is the miracle that I believe as well that will save our planet for all of us.
I do too. We are all connected. Every single one of us, we are all connected. We're connected to the dogs, the cats, the birds, the frogs, whatever. We're all.
We have so many little peepers right now. We just had a few days of really intense storms, and all of a sudden, I guess somebody laid a nest, and there's all these cute little peeper toads just hopping around, and it is so marvelous. And it's like, those are the things when, if you're listening or you're watching right now and you stop for a minute, you can say, what really makes my heart sing? We're going to assume that if you're listening to Social Dog Podcast, if you're listening to Let's Talk to Animals podcast, you're probably our kind of people, right? You're kind of a nature loving, appreciative, caring, empathic person. And Cindie, I also really resonate with your vulnerability in sharing that maybe your childhood wasn't idyllic, but so many conversations I've had, and even in my own childhood, I've discovered that somehow that almost seems to be, if not necessary, advantageous to opening the heart and developing that empathy channel, giving us the courage to see past someone else's struggles into who they truly are. And that includes not just other human animals, although that's very helpful that we have that skill, but also the non-human animals. I know you do a ton of work with rescue. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you got involved with that, but that seems to me to be an essential component of working with rescued animals who are coming in with their own very complex histories, broken homes, trauma, abuse, and your ability to be able to see the essence of them, who they truly are versus their circumstances. I don't know if you have had a particular experience that you'd like to share with us, but I certainly was very moved by the work that you're doing, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Thank you. Rescue work is it attracts a lot of different people. So I want to say this first. I want to go back just a little bit. Mm-hmm. So the animals are quite capable of healing us, and they do heal us if we allow. And when we're children, we allow. When we become adults, we forget that we had that gift, right? So whether it's a good therapist or a good life coach that will teach you, if you've gotten to that part and you're not open, that will help you to be transparent and to be open, or ask the animals to help you achieve that. But you only know what you know. So you don't know to ask for it if you don't know you need it, right? So that's where a great therapist or a great life coach comes in handy. Summer McStravick is my life coach, my personal life coach. And I've been with her for years and just growing and growing with her. So now going to the rescue, you have to be sure that you love yourself, that you're balanced. We're not all perfect, but every day we strive and do something for ourselves to make ourselves a better person. So we have to be responsible for our energy, whether you're stepping into a rescue or an animal shelter. You cannot bring baggage to go help another animal of any kind, human, canine, avian. You have to be responsible and balanced. So when you go in there, you're able to take a step back and not get drawn into the drama, but to listen to the dog. Every single one is different, or the cat, or the horse. Every single one is different. There's not another you. There's not another me. We're it. We might have doppelgangers out there, right? But they're not us. They're different. So you pull that individual animal out and you just breathe with them. You take them out in nature. Nature is healing. At this particular Mobile County Animal Shelter, which is my heart, I take them out into the yard. I just sit. I breathe. I ask Sasa, the animals, nature, Mother Earth, help me to help them. I'm here. Use me however you can, or I can scan the dog and see how the dog is feeling. And if something comes to me, whether it's an animal or an element, and I work on the dog until the dog walks off and is like, I'm good. I've had enough. And then you have this little bond with that dog. But the moment next time you step in that building and that dog just hears one word come out your mouth, they're like, I'm over here, I'm over here. They know you're there. But it's just respecting every animal. We're all connected. Who's to say I'm better than any of those dogs at the shelter? They may have, and I'm sure they do, have the most amazing gift to share with whoever their future family is. And that family that adopts that dog really needs that dog more than the dog needs them, without a doubt. And if people realize that, they'd be paying thousands for these dogs in the shelters, because those dogs are healers. They are bona fide healers. They're just
absolutely beautiful.
Wrong place at the wrong time.
And yet it really feels like there are these soul contracts in place. And time again, when I communicate with my animal clients and they'll tell me, yeah, that was rough, but they don't want to talk about that. And it's not even because it feels triggering necessarily. It's because why? The cumulative impact is here I am right now. I know how brave I am. I know how strong I am. I know what I have to offer. I kept company with my soul bird, Pearl, for 24 years, and he passed in January. And Petal is the reincarnation of Pearl, and that's a whole other story. But every morning when I would wake Pearl up, and there were some mornings when I really was struggling with anxiety, with depression, with eating disorders, and in previous decades of my life to date. And every morning he would jump out of bed, out of his casa, and he would look at himself in the mirror, and I would hear, and I got to the point where I started thinking to myself how my life would transform if I greeted myself that way every morning.
Ooh, yeah.
And how all of our lives might transform. And so if you're listening, I encourage you. I don't love the word challenge, but I encourage you, give it a try. And also the other thing that I had this really unique experience when I was living in India for a while, and listening to you really brings it up so strongly for me. In India, cows are sacred. And in the rural villages, you still find those ancient partnerships between humans and animals, where we're not just keeping companion animals and their only job is to just hang out with us all day, no matter whether we're a good match in terms of our interest, activity level, lifestyle, etc. And so going back and forth from the small village to the place where I lived, day in and day out, it got to the point where I honestly started to forget about species distinctions. I stopped seeing, oh, there's a cow, oh, there's a dog, oh, there's a chicken, oh, there's a rooster, and there's a human. It just became we're all beings walking down the road because we all share the same sidewalk. We share the same road. It wasn't this industrial modern area. It was this little rural village. So that's something else super interesting that really came up strongly for me as I was listening to you, is to just play with, what if I forgot that you're a dog and I'm a human, or that you're a Canis familiaris and I'm a Homo sapiens? What if we just kind of dispensed with that? What if we decided that's just not very interesting?
Right.
Dig a little deeper. And it feels like maybe it's your entire life path to date has given you this very fluid pathway to being able to do just that. And that must be it feels like that's one of the reasons that the animals do respond to you, and they are willing to be with you and sit in the nature. And I think what you said was Sasa, which is the sacred animals Spirit Alchemy. Am I saying that right?
Correct. Yeah.
The Lightfoot Way. I
Yes.
adore them. And I will put a little link in the show notes to
Thank you,
that program as
they are
well.
amazing.
They're incredible. They were on my podcast, I think in December. I could be wrong about that. And if you're listening to this, you're like, oh my goodness, so many people, so many. There's room for you. I want you to know there's a path for you. There's something that only you can contribute and no one else. And I love how you pointed out that we're all utterly unique. And I was reading a story recently about cloning efforts and some rather unusual species and very interesting methods. And try as we might try, we still can't manage to create an exact replica. They come out different. They may be subtle differences, but they're different because that is the design.
And we're all a product of our experiences. So everyone's experiences are different. So therefore, you're
Absolutely. Absolutely. The nature versus the nurture and the impact of how that changes our genes, even at the very baseline physical level. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you do share a little bit on one of your blog posts about just going through a battle with lung cancer and how important animals have been to your healing journey. And I would love to hear a little bit more about that, especially for those listeners or viewers who are going through health challenges right now and may need a little extra encouragement beyond the level of what humans can provide.
Right. So, boy, this is a story here. So we have a day where we have new dogs comes. We have fewer dogs on that day, and they all are assigned a trainer, and that person spends the whole day as their concierge, right? Getting to know them, getting to know us. Exactly. So a friend of mine is bringing her dog, first time there. Long story short, she comes down the driveway. The dog jumps out of her car, runs out into the highway. He's fine, but he gets hit by a car. My husband and a client bring the dog to the vet. He's fine. Well, for like weeks, my chest hurt. Oh my God, I think I had a heart attack. So I go to my most wonderful doctor, and she checks. She's like, oh, on the way out, you're fine. Anxiety, something like that. Get a chest x-ray. Get the chest x-ray. I'm not even home yet. And she's like, all right, don't Google nothing. Do what I tell you. I'll talk to your husband. Because her dogs come to my daycare almost every day. She's like, I'll handle him. Don't go online. Just do what I tell you. Hey, she's the doctor. I can follow rules. No worries. So this every step of my journey, couldn't have planned this if I tried, was a client. From my surgeon to all the anesthesia people, everything, chemo, you name it. Everyone was like, Cindie Carter, what are you doing here? And I'm in a room like with a bunch of like 70-year-olds. I'm like, oh my gosh. From New Orleans, a lot of secondhand smoke. I spend a lot of time outside. I don't in the summer anymore because the air quality, I'm sure the same as there, is when it gets really hot, is horrendous and it's not good. I had to have a lobe removed. So I only had 3 lobes, went through chemo, and nothing could be more humbling than losing all your hair and going through chemo. At that time, I worked or I should say I lived on the premises where my business was at that time. So we had 40, 50 dogs a day, and they would bring me my favorites. They're all my favorites. So at any random time, I'd have, several dogs in bed with me. Always,
That's just amazing.
I couldn't focus. I couldn't think. All I could think was like, oh, what's going to happen to the business? But what happened, and it was a really big learning moment. If you're a overachiever, I'm an overachiever. I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes, you are, truly.
Yes.
Truly you are.
I'm doing better, but yes. So anyhow, it caused me to slow down and pull back. And what it did was it allowed my husband to step in. I made more room for him. And this is a huge life lesson. I made room for him where I didn't think he could handle it originally. And he handled it, and he handled it even better and with more love than I did. So the best thing that ever happened to me was having cancer, to be honest with you. It made me a better person, made me more loving, more kind. And I really tell anybody applying to work with me, as long as they're loving and kind, you can learn anything, just be loving and kind. If you're not loving and kind, you don't even want to come work here if you're not going to last long.
For many years, I've strived to be guided by a quote by the Dalai Lama, who said, "Whenever possible, be kind. It is always possible."
Yeah.
And I thought, this really changes my whole perspective. And I feel that you've made a choice. You've set your boundaries up. This is the level of energy. This is the vibration. This is the baseline vibration that I'm even willing to permit inside my space. And so many of us go through so much of our life without realizing that not only do we have the right to do that, but we must. And we must call our people, we must call our beings, we must call our family to us. And again, it's a real inside job.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. All the guides, all the help you can get, but being loving and kind, I really feel has to be number one. Really do.
And do you feel like that, because it definitely feels like, from just the images, I tend to be a very visual person, that rise up in my mind as I listen to you share your story. And I have this vision of the dog seeking you out, like they're coming to you, like they can feel your vibe, they can feel your vibration, and they're just coming, and they're like, yes, this is what I want in my life. Again, seeing it.
They always have, but I took that SASA course from Kim and Allison. And I'm telling you, I could be walking my family's dogs down the street and birds will just come park alongside of us. Just the craziest coincidences. And they're not coincidences, of course, but just random animals that don't know you at all, never met you, never seen you, just come right up to you and offer love or kindness or whatever it is you need that you don't even know you need. They're offering you something.
It's a stepping stone. Now, from what I haven't taken the SASA course, I have taken the Reiki mastership path at this point, and I've had very similar experiences with Reiki. My experience is that if you're willing and you have the ability to offer help, to offer friendship, or and also to receive, then they will find you, because their inner GPS is set to sensory experience versus thought, rational, logical thought patterns. However, from what I recollect from my conversation with Kim and Allison, SASA is based on the energy work and the guidance of St. Francis, who
he
is a mentor and a hero. Yeah, just an amazing. If you're listening or you're watching and you're not familiar, he is the patron saint of nature and the planet and the animals, or one of many.
Father of ecology.
And yet, I don't want you to feel, if you're listening or you're watching and I just don't have the resources or the time to do that. It's not necessary. It's certainly something to put on the bucket list. I went ziplining this past weekend, checked something off my bucket list because it was the right moment, and I was called and I came. So you can add it to your bucket list, but you can do something as simple as just going outside and grounding yourself. Stand with your bare feet on a little patch of earth and just invite the planet to guide you. Ask for help. Ask for the animals to show you the way. And they will. I'd love to kind of bring us full circle. We've danced around the topic of animal communication and where that meeting point is, but I'd love for you to share any story or experience you've had that has demystified or de-wooed animal communication, or just maybe given you a real inner knowing, a feeling that it's real. It's happened, maybe an experience of when it's happened for you, and just what that was like.
So I think sometime right after cancer, it started coming very clear to me. But I think, what's the word for it? I was like, it certainly can't be me. Like
yes. Okay. Yes.
I was doubting, right? So here, my favorite story is this one here. I have a friend in Alaska who's actually my business coach, and she has a Frenchie named Newton. She's been coaching me for years as well. And every time we'd start on a Zoom, I couldn't hear her because he was talking. I've never had this happen before. He would be talking, so I'd have to ask her constantly, can you repeat that, please? And I'd be like, stop, give me a minute. I didn't know her that well in the beginning, but the more we got to know each other, it's like, oh, we were so in alignment that, she would just Zoom me for us to talk. But what was going on was he was going through his final stages, but he was so afraid of what was going to happen to her and her self-care that he didn't share it with her. He was sharing it with me. And I think the attraction is the energy. I really, really do. I think animals immediately pick up our energy. Is this someone I can approach? And then as soon as he had someone he could approach, that was it. There was no quieting him, but he was such a gentleman. Oh my gosh. It's been about a month and a half since he's transitioned. And I've tried contacting him, but I know without doubt he will communicate with me. So, because he did any time of the day or night. Like when it was time, he was like, it's time. Okay. So anyhow, I had like a year and a half beautiful relationship with this dog in Alaska that I've never met. And I love him like I love my own.
Yeah.
And to say the bond and the connection is as deep as the ocean. It's really beautiful. And I feel just as much love for him now as I did before he transitioned. Mm-hmm. He's still there. He hasn't gone anywhere. I think he's in a different dimension. That's just my thought. Having a great time. I've experienced dogs that have transitioned over visiting our facility. Mm-hmm. They had such a great time there. Now that'll make you cry. But what a blessing and what a gift to say, oh my gosh, they loved us. They loved the facility so much. They're back there with their friends. What, I don't care what anybody thinks. They're happy. I'm happy. That's all that matters. It's all, whatever drama's going on anywhere, people will look at me and they go, you're just about the animals. That's all. I'm not in your drama. I am just here for the dogs or the animals, or I won't get involved in drama.
It reminds me of the miracle quote again. And I love that maybe it took a little time for your left brain mind to sort out, and certainly for your coach to sort out as well what was going on. Because this low retention rate of my student not having, but my goodness, to just be open, because it can be, and it really is designed to be very seamless and very natural. Yeah, we just find ourselves in this point where we have not gone through any kind of formal education or even relationship training or job training or anything that really paves a path to have these very simple, very natural, connective experiences. And to me, the more I do this work, the more it feels like very quietly asking someone, well, have you ever had an angel experience? And I found that most people do. And so if you're listening or you're watching, I would encourage you to think, have you ever had a moment in your life where you have felt like an animal was trying to communicate with you? And not thought, but felt. Have you ever sensed, or have you just known? And did it just happen? What was that experience like for you? And did your left brain mind even have any ability to get involved until after it had already happened? That's so much of the method that I use to teach animal communication is, yes, the left brain mind has a role. It can be quite helpful actually when it understands its role, but it's our employee. It's not the boss. And so in fact, you might want to roll the recording back a little bit and listen to Cindie's story again and just imagine that it's you. And has there ever been a time in your life when an animal has communicated with you, and if you were just those split seconds before your left brain mind wanted to get involved and come to the party, if you just felt it happening? And what if you were just a little bit more open? When you step outside into nature, the very first moments that you're there, See if you can pick up any messages, because if your left brain mind is talking at you, it's already happened. So just consider, just drop in and just experience what there is to be experienced with the rest of you, all the rest of you. Invite the whole you to the party. So Cindie, I have so enjoyed talking with you. Thank you. We've gone a little bit over. It's awfully hard not to, as such a wonderful guest. I just want to end by inviting you to share any ways that you would like to invite our listeners and our community to be in touch with you or to connect with you in any way, to learn more.
Absolutely. Happy to help anybody in any way, for sure. You can reach me at Cindie@socialdogpodcast.com. We have social media, Social Dog Podcast on Facebook, Instagram,
Fantastic.
walksandwags.com. You can catch me at either of those places. Also, I have Mobile County Pals, which is a 501c3, which supports people who can't afford their dogs or their vet bills or heartworm treatments or whatever. Anyhow, I'm happy to help anybody in any kind of way.
Cindie, thank you so very much. Thanks. Such a privilege to get to connect with you. I love doing this podcasting thing, because I don't know that I would have ever gotten a chance to meet you and talk with you if I wasn't doing it. So I absolutely have. And I hope you have too, our dear listeners, our dear viewers. If you're new to Let's Talk to Animals, for this season, season 4, we're coming out every 2 weeks with a new episode, just giving me a little chance to catch my breath and just dive a little deeper with our guests this season. You can always find us at animallovelanguages.com/podcast on your favorite streaming service. Or if you type in Shannon Cutts on YouTube, you can check out the new YouTube podcast tab, and you can find us there as well. I look forward to welcoming you back in 2 weeks for another fresh episode. And Cindie, so looking forward to keeping in touch with you. And Absolutely. Please keep me updated about anything new that you're doing or anything you'd like our community to know about. So grateful for all the wonderful work you're doing for the animals who clearly dearly love you, and with very good reason. And sending all our love to you, our dear viewers and listeners, and looking forward to seeing you back very soon. Okay.
Much love to all. Thank you.